with your permission.
Yes.
So let's kick this off. My name is Bana Qashu. I'm the Regional Vice President of Sales for Avant for the East Coast, but also I sit on the executive board of Xposure, Inclusion and Diversity and Inclusion. I love the word exposure. And so what we've done over the last year with Kelly McMillan as our fearless leader is establish the association as a place for all of us to come together and give us an opportunity to share with like-minded people. And so whether it's diversity or inclusion, or if you, or women in the channel, having an opportunity to mentor and mentee. So when the International Women's Month came around, I couldn't have thought of a better candidate for this session as I, knew about her recent book and publication and was reading it and laughing, and at times, getting angry and sometimes getting excited that, things are hopeful and we're going in the right direction, but there's still more work to do. And so Xposure will give you that outlet. One announcement for Xposure is that we're finally getting membership together. Part of it was my responsibility to get it done. We've all come together from the community to get it done. And so you look for announcements coming soon to join Xposure and be a part of this great ecosystem. So without further ado, let me introduce a woman that needs no introduction, has been an inspiration, certainly in my career, right? I've only known Zina for a short period of time, but her radical candor, for those of you that know about radical candor, and her strength in the industry, her ability to manage and run the business and build the business that she has today, her advocate and her advocating attitude towards her customers is truly admirable and is what made her a success. But not only that, dare I say, Zina not only cracked the glass ceiling, right, fighting hard, but she crushed it. And so paving the way for her two daughters that are quite lovely, and she speaks very highly of them in the book. Notice that we're in a meeting session, not in a webinar. So out of respect, as I go through Zina's full bio, can we please make sure we're all on mute? I wanted to do a meeting session and not a webinar so that we can all have a conversation, and ask questions. So at any point, just raise your hand or say something in chat, or even unmute if you want to interject. We want it to be interactive, but I also have some questions for Zina. She's a business executive with more than 30 years of executive level positions in both the private and public sector. And if you read her book, Zina started in the medical space, not the technology space. So that was quite fascinating. So, however, in technology, it's been 20 plus years. For those of you from the East Coast, no doubt you know Zina. She is the CEO and founder of ZLH Enterprises. She's a true trusted advisor, a true consultant from the beginning. She leads with a strong sense of business ethics and integrity, which is why we get along. One of my top 5 values in leadership, and is committed to providing an excellent customer experience, which is what makes her business successful. And not just in the voice and data space, but as she continues to expand the various solutions. She's the recipient of the 2019 Lead Award for Leadership from the Association of Channel Women, the 2019 Bronze Stevie Award for Woman of the Year, Business Services, the 2016 Telecom Channel 360 Award, and the 2007 AT&T Award for Best Customer Service in the channel. If you get that from AT&T, you can do anything, as I see Jackie cheering. So welcome, Zina. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. And thank you all for, I recognize a number of you that are on the call, and I had agreed with Bana to keep this in a give and take kind of a conversational session, because although I do sometimes speak at people, I'm very happy to speak with you.
Well, we appreciate that. One of the things that I wanted, you covered in your book, what inspired you to write the book. But if you can give everybody that's in our audience or that's listening at a later date, why did you really write that book? You know, where's the why? What is the why?
Well, you know what, for all of these years, and I think that a lot of people on this call also, oh, I should write a book. People are never going to believe everything that's happened. You should write a book, tell about this. And then it, it just got to the point, and it's really what I did on my COVID vacation, to write a book, not only about some of my experiences, but the experiences so other people can learn from it and maybe not make the same mistakes. I've made mistakes in my career. Um, Learn from it and learn how to step around it and be a better person for it. And it's a way of paying it forward. I've done, thank goodness, very well in the career. And I'm not going to be doing it forever, although I'll be doing it still for quite some time. And I hope that the things that I've put in the book can certainly help other people. And then those people in turn can pay it forward and help others.
So when you began your career many, many years ago, did you ever think that you would end up working in a male-dominated industry?
No clue whatsoever. I had no idea where I was going to wind up. Um, originally, I wanted to be an attorney, and then I had a really bad advisor in college and said, "Oh, why did you want to do that? Just find something else." And then actually, my now husband was working in the medical field, and he said, "Well, why don't you try that? I know people that are, they used to be called unit managers in medical facilities." So I went to school and got my MBA in healthcare, and that's where I started. I had no idea what the working world of reality was, because growing up and through high school and college, I had some very non-technical, non-thinking kind of jobs. I mean, I was a cocktail waitress. I worked in the old Times Square stores in some inventory department. I never noticed the paucity of women in different areas. And it's not like I said, "Well, I'm going to go into this field so that I can just fit right in." It just happened. And
Right.
fate is a good thing sometimes.
Well, and sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? Like I never thought there was a glass ceiling because I came from nonprofit management, and nonprofits historically are mainly female. I'm not stereotyping, it's true. The challenge we had in nonprofits was executive roles were male dominated. And so it was at the time mentoring women to stand up for yourself and toot your own horn, which is something that you speak of a lot in the book. And I loved it. And I have a question for you on that.
Okay.
Um, but one thing you mentioned um, a lot in the book, and it's something even Xposure is looking at on how to effectively implement a mentor program. Finding a mentor, you continue to urge, find a mentor that influences you during this job, whatever role you're playing today, or in the future. I mean, you had a mentor that lasted a lifetime.
Pretty much.
And yeah, and you named many of them because they not only turn into, they're not just a mentor, they're truly an advisor overall.
Mhm.
How does one find one?
Well, you know what? You go to conferences, you sit on webinars, conversations like this one. When you join different organizations, You see whether or not they have a mentorship program. You go to your alumni association. If you've got a degree, whether it's undergraduate or advanced. I mentor graduate and undergraduate students for a college in the city of New York. Um, all sorts of places. I do remember though, there was an organization, I won't call them out. I had volunteered to be a mentor for 3 years. And they kept telling me, we don't have anybody that needs to be mentored.
We all need mentored.
Huh?
Everybody needs a mentor.
Well, they told me they didn't have anybody. And then at one point I took a look at their mentorship program and I saw literally, it was like a 50-page application. I said, you have got to be kidding me. I wouldn't ask for this. Just like let somebody sign up and that's it. But there are so many places you can have. The larger organizations have mentorship programs within their organizations. You can go to the HR department and say, hey, do you guys have this as a benefit? There
Yeah.
just so many. On LinkedIn, just see who the loudmouths on LinkedIn, and send a side conversation to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are a couple of people on this call that I don't know if you would consider it mentoring, but certainly we chat.
Yeah, for sure. And what would you say, what was the benefit of having a mentor? Throughout your career, you named three of them, I believe, in the book by name. And so, which says a lot
Well,
about what they've done to influence. So, can you
one of
describe?
them unfortunately has passed away.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but
Yep.
yeah, we didn't even, we found out about it. My husband is the internet snoop and he found out about that. But I mean, she was wonderful because she was my, I guess my mentor when I was going through my residency for graduate school,
Mm.
and then transitioned into a supervisor. And then we stayed friendly for pretty much many years till the end of her life. But I didn't. There was a little bit of naivete that I dealt with, and I didn't realize that I was really being mentored. And as she changed her role and I changed my role, and we were different organizations, it didn't click. Oh, why don't you call and ask? What's going on and how do you deal with certain things. So after I had left the health facility and I got into technology, I had a bunch of what I call unwitting kind of mentors. They were mentoring me. I was following them around like like a little puppy dog. um, I don't know if they realized that that's what they were doing. I don't know that I would have called it. It wasn't a formal kind of a mentorship program. I filled a gap that they needed, and they filled the gap that I had.
And see, I think sometimes we do overthink. So I appreciate you making those comments and the differentiation, because there is formal mentoring where we're giving assignments to our mentees in terms of goal setting, etc. And then there's the informal. I have mentors outside the industry.
Mhm.
And it's to diversify my decision-making skills, to strengthen leadership skills, because if you're looking at it from a different perspective. So I echo what you're saying about mentors, because I would not be here today without those teachers in my life.
Yeah. Now, you don't have to listen to what they say or
No.
follow their direction. But you need to hear what they're saying. You need to assimilate what they're saying and then make your own decision. But at least you're gathering information from various sources, whether in or out of the industry, and then you decide for yourself, but know what the consequence is going to be, whatever your decision, or at least hope that you've covered the various consequences. You can't always know what they all are going to be, but try and figure it out.
Yeah, it's great advice.
I mean, like when I was in high school, I tried out to be a twirler. It never dawned on me that I might not make it. And uh-oh, what happens then? So
Well, look at you now. You're twirling all around this industry. So it may not have been twirling a baton, but you're certainly juggling all kinds of elephants.
and,
So,
and by the way, one of those, I guess the co-captain or somebody had said to me, because I met up with her maybe about 5 years ago. Oh, gee, we didn't think you were smart. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know why you wouldn't have thought that, but I mean, well, what do you do? I said, I don't know. I own a company. Oh, I guess you were smarter than we thought. So you know what? You never know, and and
no.
and people shouldn't be that judgmental.
Well, let's go into that. Corporate politics.
Oof.
Um, I reread that chapter because I've been described as a bulldozer, as challenge the process, as the black hat. You name the leadership practice, and I'll name what I'm labeled as, if you
Right.
will. Speaking of judgment, and but I know when to shut up, right? But I've had to learn corporate politics, and
Yes.
what's interesting, it's a lesson that you really can't teach. It's trying to figure out the environment, the personalities, the dynamics, and it's no easy feat when people start looking different, right? Or like there's a majority and you're a minority, right? And so this is going to be a tough question a little bit. You say, and I quote directly from the book,
Uh-oh.
always pay attention to that political environment, please.
Yes,
Right?
because it can kill you.
Right. So, how would one go about that? If what makes you beautiful as a person, male or female, right, is your ability to challenge the process, how can you be politically correct and still climb the ladder or grow successful within an organization?
So when I talk about the politics of a company, you can take a look at your organizational structure, for instance, and the person who is the SVP may have multiple VPs or directors reporting, and you've got that very staid kind of corporate ladder. That doesn't mean that's how the decisions are really getting made, because you may have a manager over here who knows the CEO or the SVP, and so you've got that indirect relationship, which is going to be stronger than any of those other hierarchical uh, seats, and you have to. So that's like the informal organization, and you need to know how that's operating within your organization. And so you may think, for instance, that there's a job opportunity or promotion coming or a project that you really want, and you're really you're qualified for it, and your manager is going to go to bat for you, but all of a sudden, from out in the wings, somebody else just shoots right past you and gets the promotion or gets that job or gets that trip or gets whatever that is. They did their homework a little bit better than you did your homework, because they had that informal organization working for them, and you thought that it was just going to be your great skills and ability that was going to get you what you thought you deserved. So I think I wrote in the book also, there was this great class that I took in college called Organizational Dynamics.
Yes, and interpersonal communication.
Yeah, you absolutely get a book on that and take a look at that, and it allows you to pinpoint who's really playing which role. and and just, from an organizational politic perspective, if there's something that you really want, you can even have somebody from outside of your organization make a pitch for you. And it depends on, it's really very situational.
Sure.
But don't, what you shouldn't do is beat yourself up if something doesn't happen and doesn't go your way because of the politics. Just, step back, take a breath, regroup, and then figure out what you want to do from there.
And I think we can all relate to various situations. And as we continue to break through the glass ceiling, if you will, it'll be interesting to watch corporate politics. So love the fact that
And
you,
especially in this industry, because everyone is coming and going in that revolving door, and you
yeah,
never know who is working where.
yeah, changing hats.
Yeah.
Yeah, changing hats. The environment's changing in our industry, quite frankly, very fast. And if it's one thing we know in technology is that change is constant, and with that change comes people change. And so I love that you continue to go and lean on education as an added supplement. I still do think it's the case today, where if you want to climb as a woman into those executive roles, that a degree in business, or mine's in corporate communications. So I'm familiar with the interpersonal communications course. It's probably similar,
Yeah.
and
I still have my book.
yeah, mine are there. My argumentativeness and persuasion book is something I still reference because I have to be mindful that not everybody's a high arg, so I have to back off at times. But with that politics, because we're always going to communicate different. Women, male and female, our brains are built different, and I took a class on the gender differences of communication between male and female. And I think it does come into play for corporate politics, especially because there are times where I face conversations where it's like, you need to watch your emotional intelligence. And it just made me want to like punch that person in the face. Just kidding. No violence. Stop the violence. But how do you handle, and how did you handle? You alluded, you had a couple of stories in the book about situations, where it was kind of like you had to, you had to fight through it. And so how did you handle those situations where you earned it, you earned the recognition, you earned the promotion, if you will, for the sake of this example, and you just were overlooked? Like how do you go about handling those? And
Well, so there are a couple of things that you can do, and it depends on your personality. Mine is not one to necessarily internalize anything. Uh,
that's for sure.
but if I knew how to play, I probably could play poker if I needed to do that look every so often. But you know what? You need to pick your battles. You can't win every battle, and you have to always keep your eye on winning the war. And to make your voice heard, there were times where I was working at a company, and by the way, everybody can figure out what these companies are because I didn't work at too many companies for my entire career. Um, but I wanted to be treated as an equal, and I wasn't from a compensation perspective or otherwise being treated that way. And there came a point where I have a very, if you haven't noticed, confrontational style about me. And without yelling or screaming or throwing a temper tantrum, I said, hey, you gotta treat me like one of the guys, and give me that promotion and give me that raise. And if you don't, then I'm all set, I'm going to leave. But you have to be prepared to follow through with what you're saying.
Right.
So, and I would have done that, but I got the raise instead. Um, and you know, there are, you just have to, you have to figure out what you really want. What's your end game? And you know, it's almost like playing chess and checkers. Figure out where do you want to go? How are you going to get there? And position yourself so that you can get there. And if something happens to impede the progress, you know, you're not going to sit there and cry and feel badly. Just, okay, what do I have? How do I change what I've been doing? And prepare yourself. Education is a wonderful way to prepare yourself. And I don't mean to necessarily get degree upon degree.
Mm-mm.
I mean, in this industry and in this channel, I love, or I used to, going to the various functions where different suppliers would be speaking, because that's how I kept up in many instances on product shift and you know what are, you know, what are the market leaders and what should we be prepared to be talking to our clients about. My clients, for instance, we've been offering, in the olden days we called it hosted telephone systems. Now you call it UCAS and charge them a bit more, but we is that not true?
No
Uh,
customers on the call. No customers were injured by this conversation.
but I mean, you know, we had that product in our portfolio before it was a popular thing to do. What, how did we do it? Well, you know, you keep your ears open and you're always learning. And even when I worked for New York State, I was always going for continuing education, whether it was, you know, they had a lot of civil service type training, but they also had management training, um, and just allow yourself to take advantage of whatever training is out there, and
Yeah.
mix and mingle with people so that you can see what the trends are. Now, you also don't need to necessarily go with the trend. You can be the trendsetter.
Mhm. That's great advice. You've built quite the successful business, great reputation. You inspire me. You perhaps inspire many women in the industry and men, right? That are following your ranks and you just don't know it, right? So I want to make sure you know that. In your book, I keep quoting the book because I loved so many things. As a woman, you need to sound that bell so that people recognize you for your value. You need to be recognized for a job well done. That fighting is hard work, whether it is employee, customer, or achievement can recognition. Can you elaborate? How can one toot their own horn and be that squeaky wheel without being a pain in the ass to deal with? Oh, I just cursed. Excuse me.
Oh,
A
I've
PIA.
never heard something like that.
Man, I knew it was a matter of time. Only took me half an hour. Good grief.
So there's nothing wrong with being an occasional squeaky wheel. So let's just put that one aside. Um, if you've been given a project and it's a great project, the outcome is terrific. If you're sitting at a meeting, you can gently insert yourself into the conversation and let it be known that it was your project, your results. Try not to let somebody, I mean, if you have a horrible manager, they're going to take credit for your work. If you have a good manager, they're going to share the credit for your good work. So you have to also follow the lead and see what kind of manager you have. If you've got that wrong kind of manager, then you're working for somebody who's insecure. And when I say to be the squeaky wheel, and when you go to a meeting, um, some people have the propensity to just never sit at the table. but they'll take one of those chairs that are surrounding the table around the wall. Don't do that. Sit at the table.
Yeah.
And if there is an opportunity to participate in the conversation, do that. I mean, don't just talk to hear yourself, to say something. If you have something constructive, then people will see that you have good things to say.
That's great sound advice. I'm going to open it up for questions. I do have more questions, but I wanted to make sure that no one's on their edge of their seat trying to get a question in. So if you have a question, I'll give you a minute. You can take yourself off mute and off video. We wanted this to be a little interactive and ask Zina, or I could keep going. I have a whole slew just from the book, and I think we're hearing some great advice. So anybody? If no questions, I'm going to keep going. Oh, here we go. What's the name of the book? It's called My Armadillo Skin, How I Made It as a Woman in the Field of Telecom. It's a very easy read, right? Short and sweet, and it's written in a way where it tells a story. So,
and people that know me have told me that it sounds like they're conversing with me as they're reading the book.
it's so true. It's so true. And some of it is very funny. Some of it hits home. Any other questions?
Hello, this is Jamal Savoy.
Hi,
How are you?
Jamal.
Hey, nice to meet you, Zina.
Hi there.
You guys
Thanks.
don't know each other? What?
No.
I think so.
We just got connected today on LinkedIn, but I want to get my question in, so because I know other people have questions as well. But can you tell me a little bit about the process of publishing your book? I have some people that I've been speaking to, and I know a couple of other authors that have self-published, but going from, taking your experiences, taking your, I'm sure you had notes over the years of different challenges you overcame or different achievements or things that were just kind of, swirling around your head. How did you actually get from the concept to publishing your book? That's one of the questions I have for you today.
Okay, so I didn't take notes. Everything in the book was really extemporaneous. I probably could have written easily another 200 pages because God knows there have been that many experiences. The process that I used is literally during this COVID lockdown, I would spend about an hour on a Friday being interviewed by somebody who then transposed the interview, sent me the manuscript, which I then rewrote into, I put it more into what I wanted to say and how I wanted it to flow. And the interesting thing about that process is I think I got better and better at it as the chapters went on, but then I think it was by the time I was like at chapter 10, I said, oh my God, let me read back to chapter 1. That doesn't sound anything like what I wanted to sound like. So then I had to rewrite the whole bloody thing so that it flowed from the first chapter all the way through, and hopefully it does flow. And I didn't want too many things to be duplicative in there. By the way, I just remembered another good way to make yourself heard in this day and age. LinkedIn is a perfect way. If you have an article, if you have something to just make a post,
Mm-hmm.
and that can certainly get you heard and let people know what your strong points are.
Thank you very much. I have a few daughters, and all want them all to succeed in the various fields of endeavor, and love to hear examples of how people have navigated the waters. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Jamal's awesome. One of my favorite people in the industry.
Yeah.
So any other questions, you guys or gals? Congratulations on the book, Zina. Just ordered, and I'm looking forward to reading it. A comment from Kim Starro.
Thank you, Kim.
So your view on micromanagement. If there are no other questions, I'm jumping right in.
Okay.
I I was one of the guilty ones of, "Oh, I don't want to be a micromanager. I never want to be a micromanager. I'd rather paint the vision, set the expectations, and let thoroughbreds run their track versus creating a bunch of trail horses." Right. And I hate to, the
I love your analogies.
aren't they awesome?
They are.
I mean, you hire thoroughbreds, let them run.
There you go.
There are some managers that'll coop them up in the stables, others are dictating, and that's not how you raise a thoroughbred.
Okay.
And so I actually wrote a post about that, an article. However, your view was quite interesting because as you read through it, it's your interpretation of micromanagement,
Mhm.
which is not, to me, it's not really micromanagement at all. Maybe then I am a micromanager. I found your credos in building a team, especially in this day and age, to be quite relevant. So for those of you who haven't read the book, you need to read the book because Zina will go into those credos and like they're so relevant, especially now in a complex environment, an ever-changing environment. But for those that haven't read it yet, would you define micromanagement to our listeners and select some of those credos in your definition so that we can be inclusive of people who haven't read the book yet
Okay.
and know what we're talking about?
So my definition of micromanagement might be different than other people's. And in business, oftentimes when somebody is talking about being a micromanager, it's in a negative, nasty, I don't like what you're doing kind of a sense. And I was criticized by somebody in a very nasty, negative manner once, in a very biting description. And it was, well, you're a micromanager. And I reread it, and I said, well, okay, I'm a micromanager. I enjoy being a micromanager. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do everybody's job. It doesn't mean that I have to get into everybody's business, but it means that I need to know what they're doing. I need to know how to at least start to build the clock in case I need to build the team or add to the team. What skills am I looking for? If you don't know what your team is doing, how do you know how to hire? How do you know what you're looking for? Typically, I don't hire anybody from the industry. And that's okay because I don't have to unteach the bad habits that they may have brought with them. And not necessarily bad habits, but not the way I would do things. So I can teach people how I do things. And of course, I'm usually right.
It's okay.
So there you go. So micromanaging is knowing what your folks are doing, understanding the skills base and how all of your different cogs in the machinery have to interact with one another.
What are some of the daily repeatable habits that people can take with them as, that attributed to your success? And I know that waking up with the roosters is one of them, but besides waking up that early in the morning, what are some of the other tips that you can offer those that are listening? Some experience, some are young professionals as I look at our participant list today, that are just entering our space, our industry, and what a space that is. So if you can share those, that would be fantastic.
So I think that you can't take it for granted that just because you want something, you're going to get it. We have a generation of people that have been brought up to think that they can be anything they want to be. And as a parent, I said that to my children constantly. I think part of what might have been missing in that sentence was, and you have to work hard to get it, and you have to know what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you can't start at the top. You may have to, come into an entry level position. And it was interesting because I had a mentoring session the other day with a young woman who is not yet even finished with her bachelor's degree, absolutely no work experience, none, zero. And I said, well, what are you looking for? What kind of a position? And what do you think that your earning potential might be based on having absolutely no experience with anything? And the answer floored me because she said, well, I should be able to earn. And she mentioned a sum of money, and I was like, oh goodness, I don't think that's going to happen. Well, it's certainly not going to happen at my company anyhow. But your goals have to be realistic. And, just like when you're doing your goal setting, don't let them superimpose goals that are impossible to ever meet. Come to a compromise because you're going to be judged on it. And be realistic.
And so those are actionable takeaways from today's discussion, folks. If nothing else, like take some of those actionable takeaways and apply them in your day to day. I would be remiss, Zina, if I didn't mention how loving you can tell one of your strengths and values is your family, and how you have been a mother, an amazing mother to your daughters, but also how you speak so highly of them that the respect you could tell is mutual. I've gotten to know Jody well, and she is a fantastic young lady, besides reading about her in the book, which I'm sure
she is a superstar.
She is. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, because I do feel like it is important. And the fact that you juggled raising a family and building this is no small feat. And I don't think people realize that. And so I want to be cognizant of time, because we did say it was going to be like a 45-minute lunch hour. But if you have some time, if anybody has any questions, we'll allow for a couple of questions from the audience. Any questions for Zina?
So let me tell people how I operate typically.
Perfect. Beautiful. It's a good way to end.
Okay. If everything is going smoothly, you are never going to hear from me, ever. If there's an issue, I'm gonna be stuck on you, and you're gonna be, trying to shake me off. So do the right thing. Doing the right thing usually is not going to get anyone into trouble. And try and put yourself, at least certainly in this industry, have the empathy for your customer. Put yourself in their position. Don't sympathize with them that you feel badly for them. Empathize with their situation and try and help them fix it and make things work. And that will get you your referrals. My company doesn't advertise. We market from one to the other, but you'll never see us advertising.
No, and your customer service is it shines through and throughout the book, and the integrity value that you have and hold at a strong value is evident, right, in your practices. We do have one more question, anonymous question from the audience.
Okay, I just wanted to, and you have been the recipient.
I have been the recipient.
When we had an unhappy customer.
I have.
Do you remember?
Oh, I do. I remember the provider too. I do. And we handled it though, didn't we?
Still are.
Yeah.
Some things just never go away.
And some providers just never get it. we'll keep that to a different discussion altogether. I
Right.
have to remain agnostic in my presentation. So the anonymous question is, how are you managing ageism in the channel?
Oh, well, isn't that interesting?
Right?
Yeah.
I never thought of it.
I just ignore it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You know, there were so many isms, and you can't do this, you shouldn't do that. Oh, just do the right thing. And then you don't, and then you don't have to worry about anything.
Right.
Do unto others, literally, as you would want to be treated yourself. And if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right.
Yeah. Trusting your gut, huh?
Mhm.
How's that? Well, those are great words to end our session with author, CEO of ZLH Enterprises out of New Jersey, author of My Armadillo Skin, How I Made It as a Woman in the Field of Telecom. If you haven't picked up the book, pick it up. It's a fun weekend read. Do we have another question in the audience? No. All right. Well, Zina, really appreciate you taking the time, especially at the end of month, quarter, for some it's the year. And keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And I hope to hear from people.
Yes, please reach out. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
attending.
Nice to see you guys. Have a good one.
You too,
Okay.
Jackie girl.